And Councilman Adams, if Councilman Johnston doesn't get on time, I can present, but I'm quite sure he should be here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I guess you, Council Lady Gray, and I would make a quorum so we can actually start on time.
Yes, sir, and we don't have anything to vote out, so they're both resolutions, and so we don't have to
take a vote, but I'm not on the committee. So would I be included in the quorum?
No.
Oh, no, you would not. Council, oh, wow. No, Council Lady Gray, I guess you are not. I would have included you though, ma'am.
But we don't, again, we don't have anything to vote out of we don't have anything to vote out, so quorum's not needed for any type of vote.
That's true, but yeah, I guess we can hold a meeting with 3 people present. Right?
Yes, because we're not voting, we're just presenting.
Yeah, we still got 4 minutes. We're good. Any reason why I'm early? I had to chair the meeting and knew I had to be here early, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you have Thanksgiving plans, ma'am?
Just some time, spending time with family, small gathering of family.
Good for you. How about you, Councilor Lady Gray? Do you have Thanksgiving plans?
Just to cook food and for my husband and I to eat it. In fact, we've already cooked our turkey. He smoked it on Saturday. And on Sunday, we had turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce and sweet potatoes and corn on the cob and cornbread and greens.
Well, you sound like quite the cook there, Councilor Lady Gray. I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I cook a lot. In fact, while we were in quarantine, I think I only ordered out twice.
And that's why you've been happily married for 43 years or something, right?
49. Right. In fact, we like to eat out, but we get tired of it. You know, after maybe once a week is good. That's what we used to do.
Well, good for you, ma'am.
What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Actually, my wife and I we're running away. We're going to go to Tillman Island for the long weekend, and we're eating at the Tillman Inn for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's great. No, we just decided to cancel a trip to Florida. We're not gonna, seeing how they're acting at the airports like this weekend, they're not distancing or anything.
Yeah. I saw the Chicago and the other airport they had on, I guess Atlanta. Yes. Yeah, my wife would not fly anywhere. So
we were going to fly, but we weren't going for 2 weeks. So this was sort of like a test to see what happens. But I really think it's not, we've decided we'll just lose the money.
Well, hey. Well, they got a 3rd vaccine coming forward, so hopefully we'll get rid of this stuff by spring or summer.
Yeah. It's funny because I just found out someone's mother tested positive and she almost never goes out of the house. She has her groceries delivered, so.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we just did the testing today in order to be able to travel. That was, I know the council president had something to do with setting the things up here in Wilmington, and that was real easy to do right there. It was 22nd and Market Street, corrective.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was the ones that did it. So that was very convenient.
I think I've been tested about 4 times.
Yeah.
Every time I think I've been someplace. Well, Harold's uncle died, and he's the executor of this state in DC. So we've had to go to DC to take care of the funeral and the cremation and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So, in fact, the funeral is at Arlington on the 9th of December. So when I come back, I'll definitely get tested then too, after a couple of days.
Beautiful place, Arlington Cemetery.
As
You
long as it's
guys-
not snowing or icy.
Pardon me, everybody. We're going to get started. Just give us 1 second to go live.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Just wanted to say I'm here. How are you all?
Good.
Oh, good.
Great.
Nice to see you, Rahima.
Nice to see you too, Sarah.
We're live.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the November meeting of the Health, Aging, and Disabilities Committee for City Council. I'd like to, we do not have a quorum, so I cannot call it to order at the moment. However, we do have two presentations that do not require voting this afternoon. So prior to opening this up, I'd like my comrades who are here to introduce themselves. Go ahead, Madam President, please.
Good afternoon. Hanifa Shabazz, President of Wilmington City Council.
Good afternoon. This is Linda Gray, First District City Council.
Great. Thank you very much, ladies.
We also have staff.
Good afternoon. This is Andrea Queen, a legislator.
Great. Do we, Ms. Bay, did you want to introduce yourself as a staff member?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Rahima Jabarbe, Strategy and Policy Director.
Great. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a resolution establishing a city council task force to study and recommend reparation proposals. Madam President, did you want to present this resolution, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am presenting this resolution. Oh, wait a minute. I just lost it. Forgive me. As we are all aware, there's been a lot of efforts congressionally to address the issues of reparations for the African-American population here in America. This currently is legislation being headed up by Senator, State Representatives Sheila Jackson Lee and Senator Cory Booker in the introduction of H.R. 40 and Senate Bill 1083, respectively, to establish a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans in the United States. As we are aware of the need of such a action, and has come before Congress in numerous times, and we anticipate and are in great hope that this resolution, this laws and acts will be enacted upon to address the injustices and brutality and inequities that are established here in America for people of color. I think things that are happening lately with Floyd, with Brother Floyd, and other issues that we have with our criminal justice system, it's come to, and along with COVID, tremendously with COVID, that the inequities that are afforded to people of color here in the United States, that this is even more necessary to bring about equity in health, economics, and other opportunities. The importance of this Wilmington City Council of forming such a task force, and I do see Councilman Johnson has joined us. I would like him to come in also because he is also sponsoring this resolution along with me. The importance of Wilmington establishing such a task force is so that we could be prepared. And there's been many different studies been done here in Wilmington on different sectors of quality of life. whether it's education with REACT, the health issues that we're dealing with the violence with the young people is being looked at through the Center for Disease Control investigation by the Wilmington Community Advisory Council. You have the criminal justice reform, you have ACLU, you have many different organizations taking parts of trying to address these many inequities and injustices that are plaguing people of color, African Americans here in America. But it's important that Wilmington is prepared by beginning to do the study to come up with a holistic plan of action, a plan of needs, holistic plan of addressing the many social ills that we are suffering from. So I felt it was important that we now get geared up by forming this task force so that we can come together in a united force and to be ready. So when the act is affected on the federal level and comes down to us here and affects us here on a local level, that we will already know how to address our needs. We already know, but how do we do it in a comprehensive manner, to have the necessary data, to have not just the data, but the solutions ready to address the many inequities that's plaguing our community. I think we've waited long enough, over 200 some odd years for this. Many other indigenous individuals have come into America and have received some form of reparations. There's always been questions of how to address this here in our country, and I think we have enough intelligence, enough history, and data to be able to substantiate how to come up with this. I think it's important that it's done at this time, especially because we have fallen behind in other areas by not being prepared, not having that ask ready, not having a collective voice of action. And as we've gone through history, through the 12th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the Constitution to enact different ends of results of the various acts of enslavement here in America, that we are now, think we're to a point where addressing this in a comprehensive, data-driven, unified voice, it's that time for us to do so. So I'm excited about sponsoring this resolution to get the first step, to plant the seed, to form a task force of community experts in various fields that have done in their own areas research and data as to the inequities and have come up with magnificent solutions. But now I believe with a plan of action, we can bring about that equity that I think would not only just be beneficial to African Americans here in America, but it would help America, period. So I pray that my council members see the value of moving on this. And before I wanted to give my closing comments on it, I wanted to see if Councilman Johnson, you have any other added input that you wanted to have in reference to our proposed resolution.
Good evening, Council President.
Sorry, Chair, if you could give.
Yeah, excuse me one moment. At this time, I'd like to recognize Councilman Christopher Johnson from the 7th District is here. Secondly, with Mr. Johnson's presence, we do have a quorum. Like I said, we don't have anything on the agenda to vote this evening, but we do have a quorum with his presence. Now at this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Johnson for the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Adams. I appreciate the time, and I can't say it any more succinctly than Council President as to why planting this seed for the task force is important. It's going to be a journey trying to put this task force together, because we know the inequities exist, but we need a comprehensive plan on how to fix it. And if we raise, everyone's tied in the city of Wilmington, then it won't just help with African Americans, it's going to help with all people in Wilmington. But specifically, we need to look at the history of segregation, the history of Jim Crow, the history of education policy, and how it's impacted our residents. Council president has been the leader in the CDC gun violence progress and research. You could even link it to that. So it's just a lot of systemic issues that need to be addressed, and we need to have the experts around the table to address and to look at these issues. And this is not just a task force for the sake of having a task force, but this is a task force and tasked with figuring out what's going to help Wilmington residents the best. Not that we're not concerned about the rest of the state, but we need to figure out a plan, an equity plan for our residents. So for that, I commend Council President for kind of leading this effort, and with the 108th Council, I definitely look forward to actually putting this task force together and coming out with a written plan. Was how we're going to fund and create the solutions that will kind of level the playing field. So that's really, I think, what we have to look forward to. I hope this has the support of all of City Council. I would hope so. This is something I think everyone can support. And I look forward to having the help of the community to put this task force together and to really work to make sure we address these issues. And again, we are concerned about Wilmington residents. We're going to press the state to continue to look at this issue as well. But Wilmington can't sit back and wait. We're going to take the lead in looking at these practices, and something I think throughout the state, they should be talking about how reparations can work in their specific community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chair, may I finish?
Pardon me, Madam President, just one moment. At this time, I would like to recognize that Council Lady Michelle Harley from the 4th District is here. In addition, I would also like to recognize that Council Lady Rashima Dixon from At Large is also here. Council Lady Dixon is a member of the committee, and so we are have our 4th member present. At this time, before I go back to the Council President, I see that Council Lady Harley would like to have the floor. Madam Harley, it's your turn, ma'am.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I really do. I'm listening to both Council President Shabazz and Council Member Johnson. And I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's definitely long overdue. And I mean, again, some things is better late than never. I get that, but I still haven't heard who's going to pay for the compensation in terms of the individuals that are going to be on this task force. It mentions experts. And when I think about experts, usually you pay experts for their expertise. So one of the concerns that I had from day one when I seen the legislation was who is going to pay for it. That's one of the questions. I have several, but I know the Council President has more to say. She allowed Johnson to jump in and she wants to continue, but that's my first question that I would like to know, who's paying for it. And I would also like to know the names of the individuals that are in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Harley. Yes, Madam President, I will give you back the floor, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, in doing the research for this legislation, which we've been working on since November of last year, there have been numerous other municipalities across the country that have done great strides and already starting to do minor pieces of legislation to address and get prepared for the congressional acts coming forward. And so we do have some best practices already in place. The answer a question in reference to experts in completing our research also here in Wilmington, Those experts are individuals such as state legislators. Those experts are such as the ACLU, the Urban League, the criminal justice system, the WEAC, West. These are individuals who are already in their individual sectors of expertise, are already prepared and are very anxious to lend their expertise and come together on behalf of the community without compensation, to bring forth the compensation that all African Americans will receive in the form of reparations. So when we mean by compensation, is just regarding any type of administrative support that would be required to support this team. But I don't think that any other experts would really look for a paycheck to use their expertise to come forth to bring about reparations for African Americans in America. So I hope that answers your question, Councilwoman Hawley, as to that. And if it comes from a federal act, I believe that the federal government would see the value, importance, and need, and supply that resources that would be necessary for the other levels of government to implement the acts of Congress that would address the reparations. The goal is for us to be ready to be prepared to receive, or really to direct. In my conversation with the Delaware Black Caucus and also the few, and also in speaking to the African American Task Force that's been formed, all other levels of government are already gearing up for this. Delaware State University, the University of Delaware's faculty all have expertise in this area already and would provide the expertise as a public service. So we're not talking about paychecks in the way that you presented your question, Councilwoman, but it's amazing that when I researched and talked to other entities already, everyone was gung-ho and just waiting to come to the table to address this. So I don't think it would be difficult first to get anybody to lend their expertise. And I don't think it would be difficult to even find it who would be willing to work on this task force and to come together to address something as vital to African Americans in the United States, especially here in the city of Wilmington, to come up with a answer. I want to share this with my colleagues. I can recall when the violence was really gearing up under at that time, Mayor Baker, and Governor Markell came in and deputized the state and the county police. That's how come they now have some jurisdiction to come into the city to do some policing responsibilities. And the other thing that Governor Markell stated, that he said, we all know that we can't police our way out of our issues, and that there were any type of social services that was needed, that they would be, that he would be willing to provide them. The problem was we never asked for those supports of social services under that administration. Until we've put forth the Center for Disease Control investigation of the trauma to find a root cause. And so now we have finally been asked. When the Floyd incident happened, and the Black Caucus also did their presentation of what they felt needed to be done to address the racial inequities, the question was, and so what do we want? When the civil unrest and the protests are walking around, the question is, what do we want? We have to be prepared with an answer to that ask. And this task force is essential to be able to answer that question. What are we asking for? What are our needs? What does it cost? What's the data to support it? And if you look at all of those different organizations that I mentioned, Urban League, NAACP, the Center for Criminal Justice, the Black Caucus, the African American Task Force, the WEAC, West, all those different, and the WCAC with the CDC report, all of us have answers and solutions, but not in a comprehensive plan. I have to give it to Senator Darius Brown. I believe he had the most put together, and he even said was, but not complete. ask, what do we want? What do we need? When he talked about $14 million possibly to help us to address some of the social inequities. But that's a scratch in the bucket, just $14 million for the depth of issues and social ills and inequities and trauma that we faced here in America due to being enslaved for over 400 years. So I don't think we could put a price tag on what it's going to take to address reparations. I don't think anyone were looking for monies to be able to come up to that answer. And again, like I said, there's other best practices in cities. California has the biggest task force under State Representative Reeves there that is doing, that is looking at this issue of being prepared to say, what will it take in the title of reparations to address and bring about some piece of the racial issues that we have here to give us our 40 acres and a mule that was promised to us and to bring some balance to the inequities for all the contributions that we've made to this country. And I just want Wilmington to not wait, to not be left behind and being prepared by bringing this task force. And the response that I've gotten from thus far from some of the organizations is overwhelming, that everyone is eager and ready to go. As to who they are and how they're selected, that will be up to the 108th session to do that. Timing doesn't allow this session to do it, but I didn't want to wait. I wanted to plant the seed to get it going. Get the task force signed, and as to who the members of the 100 of this task force will be, that's up to the 108th session to make that decision. And once the report comes back, it's up to the 108th session and or whatever session would be in place at that time, if it's timely, to make action and present that to our upper levels of government through state and up to the congressional delegation. So I hope that answers some questions that might be in the minds of my colleagues and see the importance of helping me to plant this seed of getting this task force in place, to designate that there will be a task force and to continue to move this movement along. We missed out on the Census Count Committee. We missed out on that. So for similar type of questions. We missed out on the census count, and we don't want to miss out on this one because those simple questions are not answers that can be easily answered by just continued communication. So, Mr. Chair, that's my point. And again, I pray that my members of council see the value, importance of moving this forward and planting that seed so that when the 108th session comes into session and are orientated, got their legs under them, that we know all new councils has to do, that we could get a task force to be working on it, on getting the answer as to what the reparations look like for the citizens of Wilmington.
Thank you, Madam President. One moment, Councilor Harley. I'd like to go around the table here before I get back to you. Councilor Gray, would you like the floor, ma'am?
No, thank you.
Councilor Dixon, would you like the floor, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions just based off of the work that Council President Shabazz just alluded to. So I know that the bill was introduced in the Congress level, I think back in of last year in 2019 when HR 40 was introduced. I know you said that there was some work that was done before, I think you said almost a year before today, as far as regarding the reparations that were being researched and worked on. Can you just speak to where kind of the place of where it is now, now that you have more so brought this to us after having a lot of the research done after the past year? Kind of like organizations, I think you also said were interested. I know you said that you just were planting a seed, but are the organizations that you're referring to that were interested the ones that you outlined in the app and the like the Urban League and those other organizations? Are those the ones that you all put out for interested parties in regards to working on the task force?
Go ahead, Council President. You may address the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my talking with some of those other organizations, there has been in amongst themselves the talk about reparations, and coming together to form a task force so there's a comprehensive conversation about how reparations would be affected here in Wilmington is a conversation everyone is interested in joining in on. As what they've done in the individual organizations, I can't speak to that per se, but when approached to them with the other best practices and other municipalities work, which some of them are very much familiar with, they thought it was a great idea that such a task force be put together so that there is a collective, united discussion on how we would address it here in Wilmington. And that's why it's just a seed planted to start the conversation in a collective voice rather than in each individual sector. I know that Senator Brown stated his interest was because he said he would love to have the input from Wilmington as they're doing their work through the Black Caucus and the African American Task Force. Some of the grassroots or local needs are to help them fulfill what they need to do on a state level. So that's why it's just a seed. It's just a seed being planted, and then the roots have to grow, and we have to continue to build on what that looks like. So they don't have any structure because there hasn't been a collective conversation in Wilmington or the state of Delaware about reparations. This would be the beginning of that conversation in a collective voice. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Dixon, if I could interrupt you for just a moment. At this time, I'd like to recognize that Councilman Turner from the 5th District is with us at this meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councilor Dixon. You still have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that answers my question to a certain degree. I think also would be helpful is because of the work that you said that, for example, Senator Brown has been doing and what the axe is regarding, and I think the other agencies too, would be good to at least know what everyone is kind of trying to bring to the table or have been worked on, even if it's individual. And I understand the emphasis of bringing it all together so that you can have the conversation about what is the axe regarding as far as the state. I just wanted to know if there were any documentation or anything that we could have that adds to this that could potentially be documented now so that we at least know what folks have been working on individually. I just hadn't heard anything that reparation was being worked on by the different agencies until I heard it from Darius, Senator Brown, regarding that they were working on it down there in the General Assembly, as well as for Congress level. But I just didn't know how all these entities were kind of interacting so that we're making sure that it's a constant flow of it happening as far as establishing a task force. Is the state going to create a task force too, or is it just going to be a task force in Wilmington that's talking about reparation? We're just trying to figure out how it's all kind of intermixing.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I was just going to say, Madam President, would you please address the question?
Sure. Well, that's the purpose of planting a seed and to forming a task force so that we can create structure of how this conversation will be made. will be had, let me say it that way. And the use of the term reparations per se is, I'm quite sure, fallen off the lips of all of those organizations that I mentioned, but not in a focused manner, as in complying or being prepared for the success of the act from Congress. So we would have and be able to see how each entity that I mentioned was focusing on reparations when we brought the joint groups together to discuss the topic of reparations and how what their work is doing. I mean, I use WEAC for instance. The great work that was done through that work, that group led by Tony Allen, definitely was addressing the inequities of education and providing an equitable education for the citizens of Delaware, children of Delaware, would fall under I would say a act of reparations. Just dealing with inequitable housing issues, redlining, inequity, the social deterrence of health, all of those are, and all the social and economic and political racial injustices that are in our policies being addressed is addressing reparations here in America. So as I said, Councilwoman, it's a seed. It's a task force that's being formed. It's the beginning. It's getting prepared. It's being proactive. It's being innovative in addressing something that is plaguing our community and causing the traumatic issues that we're suffering from, per the Center for Disease Control, who stated that the policy deliveries and some of the inequities and the systemic racial policies in place are detrimental in causing, the trauma that our young people and resulting in violence. Their cities have already passed reparation legislation. North Carolina is one of them. And as I stated, California is doing a major statewide task force to address this issue. And so if we Wilmington if we have all those answers that you're wanting to have before we decide to even start looking into this, we'd never get there. So that's the purpose of planting the seed, of putting this task force together, having all of those various individual organizations who've already done work in their own right, addressing the inequities and the issues that are plaguing the Black American community. We would just be in line with everyone else. Providence, Rhode Island is another one. There's several other municipalities who are already ahead of the game. I'm just trying to get Wilmington to get into the reparations movement for us to be prepared for when, and I say when because I feel really confident that we're going to be successful in getting this congressional act passed to address these inequities. And so if it comes to that light, then we would know Wilmington and Delaware would be prepared to get our share of the resources and that are going to come through those reparations. The other thing that I said that we weren't prepared for was the COVID. That's what it was. Not prepared for the COVID CARES Act dollars. How was that going to be disseminated to address the inequities, the pandemic, and I mean the pandemic itself, as well as the epidemic that we have with the trauma, and also the inequities. We weren't prepared to say what we needed to address all of that. And I just feel that it's important that we be proactive and innovative by pulling this task force together and getting all that brilliant minds and all that research that we have within our community, throughout our state, to come up with a prepared ask to deal with the inequities that reparations would address.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Lee Dixon.
They prompted more questions for me, but I'm trying to, I'm thinking in my brain, because as you know, Council President, and I had this conversation with you a little bit before, but I think, and it may be the millennial in me, but the word reparations does not, to me, represent, I think in some cases, what you just said for the other agencies, and which is true, is that everyone's identifying the inequities that are existing between the different sectors, but not specifically calling it reparations, for example. So, and seeing the different organizations and the different COVIDs and the different teams, I'm just trying to make sure that we're synchronized, because what we saw somewhat over the course of the state, especially if we're saying like North Carolina and some of these other places are doing it statewide, as if they're be able to do a statewide, why shouldn't we, for example, since we're a lot smaller as far as the state, understanding that Wilmington has an emphasis, big piece on it, because it is the highest represented African-American community in the state of Delaware, to have a piece of it. But I'm just trying to make sure that we're not replicating, because in some cases we do that in the state of Delaware, as far as like having different groups based on where you are in the state. So I'm just wondering if we'll get to a point where, yes, it's important to have the conversation start with Wilmington to be able to do it, but how does that it could turn into, well, it needs to be broader than Wilmington. It needs to be the state of Delaware that's having more so this input and jobs regarding what's happening with reparations or whatever we decide to call it. I'm just thinking of the different pockets that we continue to do, and it kind of drives me crazy. So I think I'm just trying to get my mindset on kind of how things are working and operating, so that I have a better sense of it. And then I know you also mentioned that there would be a consultant. How much did you mention that there was a consultant who'll be working to be paid, or I thought you mentioned someone that would be paid out of it as far as administrative costs?
I said possibly there might be a need for administrative costs. I didn't, that is up to the structure when we identify who the members of the task force are, and the task force is finalized and formed, and its processes and it are put into place based on the individuals brought to the table. If they felt that they need administrative support, then that would come about. This resolution does not completely formulate every step and part of the task force. It just states that we do form a task force, that we began, like again, plant the seed, and as to formulate a task force to do this tremendous work. And when I want to say, I mentioned California was the only state representative, but Chicago itself has passed it for its city, Asheville, North Carolina, Providence, Rhode Island, Raleigh, North Carolina. These are cities. These are cities, but that have done it for their particular city. And I just think it's so important for Wilmington to identify, its needs about the inequity reparations for African Americans, because we are the largest city. And so we would, there would be a template used for the other cities and their population. But as the largest city, and they always say if Wilmington goes, so does the state of Delaware goes, that it would be our responsibility to the African Americans in the state of Delaware, since we have the largest population, to take the lead on this and to get us prepared to address this issue of reparations. And I can understand you as a millennial not understanding it because of your age and not experiencing some of the things some of us maybe older have experienced as we have progressed in here in America through our enslavement, through the civil rights movement and things of that nature. So I can understand you might not being able to understand it, but those of us who are a little older and have lived it and experienced this experience, that's why I think in some of those individuals' organizations, it resonated with them, the importance of the term reparations and what it can do to better the life of Americans here in Wilmington and across the country.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Dixon, do you have anything else, ma'am?
Other than I would say that I don't know the inequities that exist because I wasn't.
I didn't say you didn't
here
know. I said
long enough, but
experience.
yeah,
I-
experience. Right. Yeah, I understand as far as experience, but plenty of family and friends around to understand the experience. But I don't want to. I'm just saying as far as the not that what we have experienced and what we're still experiencing until today is not important. What I'm saying is that we have different viewpoints on what reparations should look like. So I'm just saying it's for, yeah. So it's not about what it is. For some people, it looks like money. For some people, it looks like I want my mule and the land. You know, it's all those type of things about what has progressed over the course of time. But I think it all makes sense as far as what we're trying to do. I'm just trying to say that it should be done in a more streamless process, which I understand is trying to be done. I'll leave my questions. I mean, I'll stop there, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure, you're welcome, Councilor Dixon. Yes, this is round one. I give a round two in just a moment. Councilor Harley, this is still round one, so would you please continue where you were before? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually like the way that you're operating with the questions. I like that. I'm taking notes, doing the round one and the round two. Yeah. So I really appreciate all the information that Council President is sharing. And there is no doubt in my mind that this is the right thing to do. There's no doubt in my mind that all of what she has shared is what's happening and the urgency and all that. I agree 100%. I agree with 100% of everything that represents what we are talking about. The only issue that I have is for this to be such a hefty piece of legislation and for it to be very involved with appointing people, getting experts and things of that nature. And for this to have been worked on for the last year, you know, for it to come on the floor two meetings away from the end of the session, I just feel as though it's putting the cart before the horse because there's so many unanswered questions and so many unknowns, who the experts are going to be, how it's going to work. I mean, it just doesn't feel like to me that doing this way is giving this topic and an important subject and something very important as it relates to how this works. This is just me. I'm one person. This is what committees are all about, for us to share information and hear, ask questions and get information. And I just feel as though for it to have been in the works for a whole year and we're just now getting information and feeling like, oh, what about this? What about that? 6 months ago, we could have been having this conversation. We could have been identifying who these individuals are, specifically having a conversation, getting buy-in. And I just feel like putting it off and just saying we're going to have a task force right now with this session, I don't see the benefit in it. If everything is going to take place with the 108 session, I just don't see the benefit of doing all of this. I just don't. Versus waiting until the 108 session. I commend you. I think you should get all the credit. If this is about credit and you wanting it to be noted that you are the one that is presenting it, that's fine with me. But again, I'm for doing the right thing, but I think doing it the right way and giving it due diligence to discuss it, talk about it, who are these people and things of that nature is very important. And I want to say, as it relates to compensation, and how people are going to get paid as it relates to the experts, I don't think the legislation that we're looking at right now was the first piece. Is this a different piece of legislation, the resolution that we're looking at tonight?
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Please answer the question.
Yes, sir. The resolution you're looking at tonight has been changed from the original. The original was because we have been working on it for quite some time. The timing that it took was because you do your research before you present it to everybody. So we were doing research, and that's why we know what other cities and municipalities have been doing, because we were looking for best practices of how to do this. So that takes time, it takes research to get it done. And then when COVID hit, of course, that we get distracted. I got focused on trying to get the testing done. So then now I can come back and get back to my legislative agenda. Then that's why the resolution is brought forward. And you're right, we are at the end of this session. And so I plan to work all the way up to the very end of the session because that's what I was elected to do. And so the change in the legislation was just, again, to plant the seed. The resolution states for City Council to form the agenda, to form the task force with the selection and appointing by the president of the 108th session, approved by the 108th session. So it's up to the 108th session to determine who those individuals are. I just planted the seed and providing some research for the 108th session to carry this forward. We've waited 400 years. I don't want to wait another minute. That's my passion. I feel the importance of why I'm still moving forward and not waiting. And everyone had the opportunity to bring the subject up. And if they didn't, I was, so I still have, I think it's my responsibility, my duty to bring forth this legislation on behalf of the citizens of Wilmington. The change has been made that the 108th session make the appointments, the 108th session a council approves it and carries it forward. So it's an ongoing, just like the Senator Cory Booker is picking up Brother John, rest in peace, John Lewis's work. He's picking it up and keeping it moving because it's a living document. It keeps moving. So if I answer your question, yes, it's been changed. Those concerns that you have, 108th session address. But it's something that definitely needs to be done. And it was in my pipeline of legislative items to do. So, and I'm still on council and it's still my job to do legislation. So that's why up to the very end, I will continue to push legislation forward.
Thank you, Madam President.
I have a
Ms.
follow-up.
Harley, are you done, ma'am?
I just have one last follow-up. So
Sure.
thank you for clarifying that this is a different piece of legislation, because I know the first piece of legislation that was presented, it had different language in it regarding experts and it couldn't work and things of that nature. So I'm just kind of looping back around to why I asked about the compensation. It wasn't, for no reason. It was because what was in the first piece of legislation that you presented, it talked about the guidelines in terms of who could be on the task force. So that I wanted to clarify my reason for asking about how individuals are going to be paid, because that was in the first piece of legislation, number one. And then
it was just experts, never paid experts.
No, I didn't say that. It was guidelines in terms of who would be working on it, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to clarify the fact that as to why I asked the question based on the information that was in the first piece of legislation. And secondly, hey, again, you should be involved in legislation to the very end. And I'm not doubting that, and I'm not questioning that at all. I'm just talking about the fact that it's hefty. And you did include the 108, which this is a different piece of legislation than what you originally presented, in my opinion, and has a whole different tone to it. So thank you for, answering those questions.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, the only tone was for the identifying the task force to not be done through this session. And it was that's the only thing that was changed in it, that the 108th would identify, because it was not enough time. You're correct. It wasn't enough time to be able to identify who those individuals were and to get it to come back and be approved by this body of council. So to eliminate the pressure of trying to go through all that, and since it's going to be finalized and be in the report, go back to the 108th, I have no problem with the president appointing and identify them and approve at the 108th session. My intention is to plant the seed and get us moving so that we do not miss out on the reparations movement that is going across this country. And our citizens of Wilmington, the African-American citizens, are left behind, as we've been left behind in the census count and with COVID-19, because we didn't want to come together and to address the issues as a body.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Harley, are you complete, ma'am?
I'm okay with, what has been shared and discussed. I think it's been a good discussion. And again, like I said, that's what these committee meetings are for, to talk about legislation so we can get a good understanding and everyone, as much as possible, can be clear. So when legislation comes on the floor, there's not a whole lot of back and forth. So I like to get my questions answered, and I'm good. So thank you very much,
Great.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Harding. Councilman Turner, would you like the floor, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted clarity on this new legislation. We're saying that this new legislation is just a recommendation for the 108th session to appoint and pick committee members and also experts for this legislation.
Madam President, would you answer the question, please, ma'am?
Yes, this resolution just highly recommends that the city council formulate a task force to address reparations here in Wilmington. Yes.
Great.
And we're asking.
Thank you,
I'm sorry,
Madam.
Mr. Chair. Can I continue, Mr. Chair?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You have the floor, Mr. Turner. Go ahead.
So we're just putting this up and asking the 108th session to execute this legislation. Is that what we're saying?
No, we're asking the 107th, the 7th session to recommend through this resolution that a task force to deal with reparations be formulated and developed by the 108th session.
Okay. Now, and we also, I mean, this also could be just legislation that the 108th session just creates, correct? I mean, they're going to execute it. They're going to pick the committee. They're doing everything far as with the money, the economic background of this as well, the impact of this as well, correct?
Well, they would not do it. The task force is who would do the work. And the task force will do the work and bring the report back to the council.
And council is the 108th council is choosing the task force. That's what we're doing.
That's correct.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Turner. Tell you what, if I may interrupt here before we go to round two, I see that Representative Kendall Johnson is in the audience, and I certainly would like to recognize her. And if she would like to say something, please do, ma'am.
There we go. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing that I can't say my participation, but I am listening. I am enjoying listening to both sides, the reasoning behind the formulation of the task force, as well as some of the concerns that have been brought up by the other council members. The only thing I would add is that while Ms. Shabazz has said, she is planting the seed for what could happen in the next session, please, as you think this through, think of it as any other opportunity when it first begins. No one knows all of the ins and outs of a particular train of thought. You just know that something needs to be addressed. And also know that in the something needing to be addressed can be further flushed out if a task force were to be formulated as a result. And ultimately, what comes out of the task force would be the thing or things that you would look to address. So I would just say, have an open mind, understand that, and having a thought, you may or may not have all of the steps involved to get you to the end point, but know that the process itself is the journey to get you to where you ultimately want to be. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening and to be a part of this conversation.
Absolutely, ma'am. Representative Johnson, it's wonderful to have you attend our committee meeting here, and we certainly appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and yes, you have a real nice Thanksgiving too, if I don't get an opportunity to speak with you again, ma'am.
You as well.
Okay, again, if I may delay round two for just a moment. I know that one of our staff, Dr. Bay, is very attuned to this issue, and I know she's our strategy and policy director. I was wondering, Ms. Bay, do you have any comments or anything you would like to say, ma'am?
Your phone is still mic'd. I mean, muted.
Muted, okay. Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll give her an opportunity if she wants to put her hand up at a later point in time. Tell you what, since this is a very important topic to the residents here in Wilmington, let's go another round of this. Council Lady Gray, would you like the floor, ma'am?
My only comment is I tend to agree with Councilwoman Harley. I understand the importance of this, and I'm familiar that Asheville, North Carolina has done their research on reparation, but they've put it on hold to enact it. After all the research, they're not going forward. Of course, they, I think, decided on a monetary reparation, but I don't see any urgency to get this done now. Like Councilwoman Harley said, if Madam President wants credit, we can give her credit for it, even if we.
Not about credit. Please don't say that.
Well, I mean, you have done a year's worth of research and you are bringing it forth. And like you said, it is your seed, but there's just concerns about taking this on at the end of this council session. So that's my only concern. It's not that I don't see value in it.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yeah, one moment, Madam President. Are you finished with the floor, Council Lady Gray?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Madam President, I'll give you another chance at the end of the round.
No problem.
Sure. Where are we now? Council Lady Harley, would you like the floor, ma'am?
Councilman Johnson has his hand up, sir, just in case you didn't see.
Yeah, but he's number 7, right? She's number 4. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Understood. Yeah, I know. No matter what order I go in, somebody is going to be next there.
You can let Council Member Johnson speak.
Yes, except before I get to Councilman Johnson, I got to get to Councilman Turner. Mr. Turner, would you like the floor, sir?
No, Mr. Chair, you're good. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you for your patience there, Councilman Johnson. Hey, like I said, no matter what order I go in, somebody's got to be after someone else. Councilman Johnson, you have the floor, sir.
And Adams, I just wanted to kind of just follow up in terms of, because I have worked with Council President Shabazz on this matter. And then in the 108th session, I'll be working with, Council President-elect Congo on this. So for me, it's just a matter of logistics. I'd rather us start now rather than wait a whole nother month or 2 months, and then by then, we'll be in budget season, and things can go by the wayside. So I would rather just take a first step now, just so that I'm certainly supportive of it, because again, it's a big, massive effort. It's not going to be easy. So the earlier we start and the more we can break it down, we're not going to be rushing at the end. Because again, 108th session, there could be other priorities that take over, and this could get the back burner. So I'd rather go forward now. I'm certainly supportive of Council President's effort, and then again, look forward to the incoming Council President and working to kind of get it over the goal line. So I see no problem with going forward now. And so.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Council Lady Dixon, would you like the floor, ma'am?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Council Lady Dixon. All right. I'm not, excuse me?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment to what Councilman Johnson just said.
Sure. Mr. Turner, please go ahead. I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I just so Councilman Johnson said for us to start now. Even if we vote this legislation in, the task force won't be formed until the 108 session votes the task force in, correct? Or am I missing something where we vote in now, the task force will be formulated and they'll be starting before the 108 session? Is that what I'm hearing?
Madam President, would you just quickly address the timing of this, please?
Or if Councilman Johnson can just clarify what he was meaning by starting now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, could you clarify that point, please?
Since I am the co-sponsor along with Council President Shabazz, what my statement, the intent was that, again, we have to have the authorization to be able to even get this task force together. So we're going to need an ordinance or a second piece that will be, in the 108th session. So by now, I mean, we have to do this two-step process anyway. So for me, it's advantageous to get started now instead of waiting another month or 2 months. Then we're behind the 8 ball. So that's what I meant by starting now. I mean, the group would not be able to meet before the end of the year anyway. But again, it's getting a head start so that we don't have other priorities take precedence.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson. Mr. Chair, can I continue?
Sure, Mr. Turner, go ahead. You have the floor, sir.
So the more and more we talk, the more I'm getting confused with this legislation. There's going to have to be a second step to making it law and for it to have teeth. But we're doing the first step of just saying, okay, we're authorizing them to do it, but they're going to have to make a second step in pursuing it and putting action to the task force. So I'm confused at what this legislation will actually do to get started. As Councilman Johnson says, I mean, it's still going to be the same time frame. If you do it in the 108th session, you can just have a resolution passed and then the ordinance on the same agenda, and it's passed and it still has the same time frame as it does today. I'm just trying to get clarity on why now and why not later on.
Mr. Johnson, would you address that, please?
I can't speak for Council President, but again, we have to get this seed planted now, because the issue will be, we're going to have to pick out the task force. We're going to have the 108th session will need to agree on the members and who the right experts will be. So that could be a few months right there. I don't know how long that will take. So we at least need to show as a council that we're behind this idea. Then we can really get to the brass tacks of who's going to be on it. I mean, because it's not going to be easy selecting who is appropriate to be on this task force. So that's what I believe Councilman Turner is the reason for us showing that we support it now. Then we do the nitty gritty details later, rather than wait, because again, as you know, as a legislator, other priorities might take over. COVID's getting worse. There's going to be other emergency things we're going to work on. So I don't want this to get the back burner. I want this to at least start moving so that we can get it going so it doesn't lose steam. And that was really the intent behind moving now.
Best
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Excuse me, Madam President, did you want to interject something here quickly?
Yes, I could, sir. If I could, sir, Mr. Chair. Again, the intention of the legislation is to plant a seed. The research and the work that's been done in being in line with other nationalities, including the National Conference of Mayors, who has sent a resolution to Congress seeing its appropriateness to deal with reparations. It's planting the seed and getting prepared. The outreach that I've in our research and putting this together to see if it was an interest, other organizations, now since the seed has been planted thus far even without the resolution, about the idea of a task force, those other organizations are in their own way, gearing up so that to possibly be on the task force, to start focusing their work toward, shaping it so that if they are selected by the 108th, to be at the table with their work. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is just the planting of the seed from my work as a legislator and dealing with this topic over the year. The time that it was first presented to me from the National League of Cities in November, came back to Wilmington, started doing the research, COVID hit. So we focused the attention to dealing with COVID. When we got back to it, which is what the delay, and as any legislator usually does, they do their research first before they present it. I sent the draft legislation to all members of council for input questions, got nothing back, as just for the idea about us trying to form a task force. So as the conversations made some adjustments because of timing and the probability of making sure that when we plant the seed, that we had fertile ground. And so there is fertile ground. There are other organizations that I mentioned that are very interested in such to be part of a task force to address this. The details and of it is no, it has not been all hatched out. But that's what the 108th can do to carry this forward and to us to be ready to when, and I feel confident that something's going to happen in this, especially with the National Conference of Mayors saying that they think their cities should receive some type of reparations. Wilmington needs to be ready. And that's all I'm asking this council and the next council to do, is to begin the work to prepare for what could possibly happen in the form of reparations for the citizens of Wilmington. That's all. It has nothing to do with credit. I'm just doing what I've always done. 16 years.
Yeah, Madam President, just speak succinctly to the timing.
Well,
Mr. Turner, are you good with that, Mr. Turner? Where'd you go?
Yes, I'm
Turner,
good.
are you still got the floor? Go ahead, sir.
I'm good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Turner. I do want to get right back. I know Council Lady Harley had her hand up for a few moments. So Council Lady Harley, would you like to make the last comment, please?
Yes, sir. So again, I don't think none of my council colleagues don't see the urgency. We don't, we see the importance of it, appreciate the work. We all have been a part of COVID, but again, there was plenty of time to present this, okay, to get it out to the council, to talk about it, discuss it, think about who some of these experts could be prior to this coming on the floor at the last minute. I really commend all those that are involved with doing the research of this legislation. But again, with Thanksgiving being this week, and then December is the holiday, I don't see nothing happening with this. And I just don't see the benefit or the relevance or the importance of this legislation getting voted on now, because not much is going to take place. And I appreciate all the comments. And again, it's not about not seeing the importance. It's not about any of that that's been repeated over and over again. It's not about that. It's about, in 6 weeks, we're going to be off for Thanksgiving, and then we're going to be off for Christmas. And who's going to really be doing anything? Probably nobody. So I just don't see the relevance of it. And again, that's me. And I appreciate all the work that has been done on it. And I think we should do the right thing, and we should do it the right way. And thank you, Council President, for all your work that you have put into this. And I have to leave at this time. So thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Council Lady Harley. And I think we've really discussed this point quite a bit here. Madam President, can you close this resolution, I guess, in very short order, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time you've allowed me to present this resolution.
Sure.
All I can say is that Black people in America have waited 400 years, and to continue to wait for Thanksgiving, who some people, because of the reparations not coming to our people, won't have a Thanksgiving or Christmas or a Christmas tree. The whole purpose of the resolution is so that everyone could have a Thanksgiving, and that so one could have a Christmas. The work that my people have put into this country and not got paid for it. I don't want to wait another moment for us to begin the work to justify the and by reparations here in America. So it is an urgency for me. It is a big urgency, and I'm sorry that my colleagues don't see the urgency, because they're going to have an enjoyable Thanksgiving and Christmas, and waiting for and make us to have all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and don't want to roll their sleeves up and get the work done to bring justice to our people here in America. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. Of course, this is a resolution. We do not have to vote it out of committee. I'm sure if we took the time to with that. This resolution will be on the agenda of the December 3rd council meeting. That is the first week in December, which is actually not this Thursday, but the following one.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that, for everyone's presentation on the first topic. Let's move to the second one. I believe Council Lady Gray is presenting on this second topic on the agenda. Council Lady Gray, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This piece of resolution, this piece of legislation, this resolution is called LNG, and LNG stands for liquefied natural gas. Liquefied natural gas is a very volatile, hazardous, and explosive substance. A liquid natural gas transfer facility is planned for construction at Gibbstown, New Jersey, on the Delaware River north of Wilmington. Governor Carney is a voting member of the Delaware River Basin Commission, which is pending a decision whether to approve this LNG operation. The gas is primarily being delivered by truck and rail to be transferred onto LNG ships for export shipping by the way of the Delaware River south to the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this liquefied natural gas is from fracking, but it is not of any benefit to the residents in the Delaware, in the Wilmington area, because it's going directly to the ocean to be put on ships to be transported overseas. It's transported and transferred present substantial risk to all communities along the Delaware River and Bay, especially the population in and around the city of Wilmington. Ships with millions of pounds of explosive LNG will pass under the Delaware Memorial and Commodore Barry bridges. Last year in November, a mere 2,700 pounds of toxic ethylene oxide leaked from the Croda plant in Newcastle, and the Memorial Bridge was closed to traffic for 4 hours. I think most people remember that because it was during the summer. No, it says in November. I thought it was the summer, but it says in November. The movement of the LNG ships along the inland Delaware River will put the port and the city of Wilmington at imminent risk. In the interest of public safety, the resolution is submitted to encourage Governor Carney and the Delaware River Basin Commission to vote no to Gibbstown, New Jersey LNG transfer facility. I truly hope people understand this wasn't advertised. One of these things that sort of slips through. This is a very dangerous substance, and they're trying to take it right past Wilmington to get to the ocean, and we're not going to benefit from it at all. Thank you.
Council Lady Gray, with regard to commodities on ship going from north of Wilmington to the ocean, do you feel that Wilmington should somehow benefit in every commodity moved on the river?
No, well, if you're asking my opinion, no, but I think this is a very dangerous commodity and we're not going to benefit from it. And in the resolutions, the state of Delaware and other decisions about transportation and storing of liquid natural gas have been declined. So I just think it's putting our city in peril, our port and our city and our people.
Even if the appropriate precautions have been taken by the company that's doing the transportation of natural gas, you would still have reservations for this?
I don't know if it's true. I do not know what precautions they're taking. I'm sure they adhere to certain standards in shipping, but they're not going to put a facility at Gibbstown to store it, which means there's going to be a lot of transferring going on from the rail and the ships to the rail and the and trucks to the ships. So this is a lot of handling of this liquid natural gas.
Understood. The United States, though, has gone from an importer of gas and oil to an exporter in 4 years, which really strategically puts the United States at an advantage since we're no longer dependent on foreign oil or gas. So in this particular situation, maybe the overall benefit may outweigh the risk if it's minimized as far as the travel is concerned. That's strictly my viewpoint on it. To prevent some type of commerce, when they put the right precautions in place, I'd be hesitant to do that. Certainly, let's go to our comrades here on council to see if they have anything to say. I believe Council Lady Harley has left the meeting. Councilman Turner, would you like the floor, sir?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Sure, you're quite welcome, Mr. Turner. Mr. Johnson, are you still with us? Would you like the floor, sir? Oh, okay. Council Lady Dixon, would you like the floor, ma'am?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm okay. Thank you.
Got it. Madam President, would you like the floor, ma'am? No. Okay. Well, Council Lady Gray, we may be amongst ourselves here. Would you like to any final comments with regard to your resolution, ma'am?
Is there anyone in the public?
No, ma'am. That's the newspaper reporter. I could give her an opportunity if you would like me to.
I don't know if she wants to comment on this.
Well,
No,
okay, let's see. Yes, Ms. Klung, would you like to say anything, ma'am? Hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly.
I'm going to pass. Thanks, though. Hi, everyone.
Sure. Yes, and
So-
pardon my ignorance, Ms. Klung, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
It's Kwong, but doesn't need to go in a city council record or anything.
But that's okay. Maybe the rest of my comrades would like to pronounce your name correctly next time too. Thank you, Ms. Kwong. Yes, Councilman Gray, go ahead and close this out, ma'am.
Well, I'm just going to say if people have questions and they don't understand, they're free to contact me and we can discuss it in greater detail, because people might not have questions because they really don't understand, but this is a very dangerous substance. It's a liquid, but when it hits the air, it can spread very quickly and it can cause death in a very short time period. And there are some disasters that have happened, but they were years ago. And like Councilman Ciro said, maybe the precautions have been made, but I just don't think it's something that we need to have going down the Delaware River under our bridges when we're not going to benefit from the sale or the transportation of this liquid nitrogen gas, liquefied natural gas. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Lady Gray. Councilman Lady Gray, we're going to post your resolution on the December 3rd agenda for the City Council meeting. Again, that's not this Thursday, but the following Thursday.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're quite welcome, ma'am. Before I take a motion for adjournment, as chair of this committee, I would certainly like to wish all of the public and my fellow council people a very happy Thanksgiving with your family. Please, as everyone knows, COVID is quite active again, so please take the proper precautions, but enjoy the holiday with your family. I certainly hope everybody has a happy holiday and a happy weekend. And with that, could I please entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Second.
Second. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Have a nice holiday, everyone.
Happy holiday to everyone.
Happy holidays.